It's interesting, and Jerry was at the restaurant. Almost everyone who placed him there, however, was part of the Tapas 7, and servers wouldn't have really noticed. I don't think that servers really notice when somebody's away from the table for a long period of time. Had he been getting up and checking on the kids, things like that, he could have been gone for a half an hour before anybody would have really noticed. I don't think that that's something that's tracked.
But, the Tapas 7, I'm assuming those people weren't covering up for him. If he disappeared long enough to go murder Madeline and dispose of the body and everything like that, you would think that people would have noticed that he's been gone for an hour or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But if you were going to oh my gosh, we're gonna get into the stuff Steve doesn't like. But if
that's what this look on my face is all about.
I see it. If she had died earlier, and they placed her in her bed so that if anybody else were to check on her, it looked like she was sleeping, and he were just gonna dispose of the body quickly.
Yeah.
He would probably have time to do that. He wouldn't have time to, create a whole thing. But he probably would have had time, especially because there's a little bit of weird unaccounted for time.
Yeah, he would have had time to maybe go retrieve the body and put it in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, or
for later disposal. But
yeah, absolutely.
But are we going to talk about the whole theory that the kid or that Maddie might have died by an accident?
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely, we will. The next theory. Suspect is the person who was the first suspect in this case, Robert Murat.
Murat.
That works.
Murat is
Robert.
Better. Robert.
Bob.
I am going to call him Robert.
Call him Bob.
He was a local property consultant, and he was, like I said, the first suspect. He lived about 150 yards from the McCann's apartment, so close by. He was a local. And it was the house he lived in, he lived with his mother. The house he lived in was in the direction that Jane Tanner said that she saw a man walking. Just, He was an official interpreter until his interest was deemed a little too real.
What?
Well, he offered to translate. He was fluent both in Portuguese and English. So he offered to translate the statements that the Tapas 8 and all of that, everybody had given. And I guess the British police decided that was really suspicious.
The British police did, or the Portuguese police?
The British police decided it was really suspicious. Yeah. They mentioned, hey, that's a little suspicious. And the Portuguese police said, oh, yeah, it is a little suspicious, huh? So they named him as a suspect.
He could have been, what's the word I'm looking for he's a good Samaritan. He could have been just trying to be a good Samaritan.
Well, he says that his interest in the case was that he had recently lost custody of his 3-year-old daughter, and so his heart kind of went out to these people who had just lost their 3-year-old daughter, and he wanted to help as best he could.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which it turns out was the Portuguese police verified that and said, oh my gosh, we're so sorry.
The other thing, too, is that he might have wanted some attention. Getting involved in this case is possibly going to get your face, your picture in the newspaper.
Yeah, he might have. And I think there are a lot of totally innocent reasons that he could have wanted to get involved in this case. But 3 of the Tapas 7 said that they saw Robert around the apartment, 5A, at that time. But, he lived 160 yards away. Probably they did. Or they saw somebody who looked like him because his mom said that he was home all evening.
Okay, well, everybody knows your mom always covers.
Your mom's going to say, no, he was here.
I'm not joking. It's just
that's true. It's
a mom's automatic reaction in almost every case that we've ever looked at, or whether it be on this podcast or not, their mom always backs them. Because that's a maternal thing you do. You protect your child.
Of course. But the thing about it is that if he comes wandering on home with a 3-year-old girl in tow, and he's like, Mom, I just kidnapped this 3-year-old girl, and she's going to be my sex slave, or something like that. Mom is probably not going to be down with that.
But if she says, we now have a little girl to raise, Mom might be on board with that.
Maybe. But then again, you got to wonder, too. I guess she might be, but you would think that as a mother, she would recognize the tremendous grief that it would bring to the real mother of Maddie.
Yeah. Well, no, it would have been easy enough, for her to just say, oh, yeah, no, we found her. But it doesn't matter because a huge search for evidence was carried out on the mom's house, through the car. His car was the one that was the suspect car that the dogs sniffed at. Literally nothing was found. They scoured the crap out of everything that he owned, every place he had been, everywhere he lived. They called in character witnesses, all of that stuff. Nothing was found. They said, "Oh, oops, sorry, you're innocent." And eventually, this happened to the McCanns too. The media pretty much just deemed him guilty for a while, and he sued a couple different media agencies for libel, and eventually won more than $800,000 in those suits.
That's
combined.
a hell of a winning.
It's a good winning.
Not bad. Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, so I would say I agree he's probably innocent.
I would say so.
Yeah. Now here's a thing I need Joe to
Pronounce?
say for me.
Christ, I don't know. It's been a long time since I took German, but I'm going Urs Hans von Eisch.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, okay.
There's a incredibly tenuous link between this known pedophile and a possible abduction.
Now, he was not just a pedophile, he was a murderer, too.
He was a pedophile and a murderer, yeah. He lived in Spain, not very close to this Portuguese resort place. But I guess somebody thought, well, he has a pattern of abducting and murdering young girls, so he might be in on it. He committed suicide in July of 2007 by shooting himself in the head after abducting a 5-year-old girl in Spain. I don't put any stock into this, but I did want to mention it.
Yeah, that just seems like that's just too easy. But...
I agree.
Well, anyway, if he's a pedophile murderer, probably a good thing he's dead, huh?
Yeah, I think
Just had to editorialize a little bit.
I think that's maybe one of those things that most people can agree on.
Yeah.
In general.
Good thing he's not around anymore.
Yeah. It will come as no surprise, we've already discussed a little bit, that the McCanns were also suspects.
Of course.
And because this episode's a little long already, and because there's just a lot to say, we're going to kind of just bullet point this thing. Of note, who leaves their kid alone in an unlocked room in a strange country for every night for the duration of your holiday after having left a note that everybody could see? Who does that? Really, who does that? Right?
I believe we called that red flags.
Yeah, red flags. Lots of little red flags. The other thing that people talk about a lot is they've taken her. The fact that Kate came running, screaming, they've taken her. And the Portuguese police actually said that they thought that Kate was setting up, kind of setting the stage for an abduction story.
Scenario. Yeah.
Because I think this is really fair to say that most parents, when walking into the room and seeing your kid's gone, you're going to start screaming, "She's missing."
Yeah.
Where the hell is my kid?
Right? Where's my kid?
Gone. She's gone.
I can't find her. She's gone. You're not going to scream, "They've taken her."
That's a little strange.
It's weird.
Although, again, it just depends on the account you read of this. Is that actually what she was screaming?
That's every account I've read says that.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I swear I also remember because the door slammed because the window in the bedroom that the kids were in was open, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. She could have realized that her daughter was gone, looked over, and correct or not, that somebody had come in through the window and taken the child and left. And that's why she immediately started screaming,
"They've taken her?
They've taken her."
Yeah.
And that would be a reasonable...
Not necessarily meaning they've as in 2 or 3 people, but just
a person.
They.
Yeah, a
somebody.
person.
The unknown people.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's, it's that both sides of that, for sure. Again, it's the lots of little red flags. Kate also refused to answer 48 of the questions that the Portuguese police asked her. And she, in fact, said that the reason that she refused to answer them was because she was afraid they might implicate her.
Do we know what those questions were specifically?
No, we don't. And that's fair. I mean, that's another fair point, right? But I do think that that's weird.
Again, if
I can't think of maybe you can. I can't think of a question that they would have asked her reasonably within those first, it was it wasn't like, 4 months later they were asking her questions. It was pretty early on. They're asking her questions. I can't think of a question that you would ask that, 48 questions that you would ask.
I can.
Okay, ask me.
What do cops do?
Yeah, but like
walk through me with this. They ask the same question over and over and over in multiple ways, and she may have gotten fed up when they were saying, "Did you kill your daughter? Did you hide her somewhere?" And she may have said, "Shut your bloody mouth! I'm not answering that. Screw off, this isn't helping." And they said, well, she refused to answer that question because she's obviously guilty.
That's possible. And then it's also don't forget there's a language barrier here, so they're going through translators.
That's true.
So
I guess the sense that I had was that she had flat out refused to answer 48 individual different questions, and her lawyers did say, oh yeah, the reason she didn't answer those is because she thought they would implicate her. It wasn't the police later saying, it seemed like she was scared that we were going to say she was guilty. Her lawyers actually came out and said, oh, yeah, the reason she didn't answer those is because she thought they would implicate her.
Well, I can see that in lawyer speak being they kept asking the same question, trying to get her to say something, the same answer, different ways. Because cops do this all the time.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You get them to explain, wait, run me through this scenario one more time. How many times have you watched a cop show where you'll see the cop say, now, I just need you to explain this to me one more time? Because they want people to say it in multiple versions to see if they can parse anything apart to find a detail that accidentally slips into the narrative. And again, if, like Joe said, this is going through translators, I can see how frustrating that is.
Absolutely.
So it may be the lawyer's like, yeah, she answered the question. She knew better than to keep answering it because they just keep doing this. They're trying to finger her for the whole thing.
I guess.
Again, I don't believe the parents, but I don't like this whole story in general, but I'm just saying.
I guess I just don't think that even in lawyer speak, saying she thought the answers to those questions might implicate her means they kept asking her the same question. I think that a lawyer says to the public in a press conference they kept asking her if she had murdered her daughter and she kept saying no. You don't say she thought that it might implicate her.
No, no lawyer would say that.
I was going to say
you should be disbarred if you say that about your client.
Yeah, you can't say that though in an active, open investigation.
That's fair, but you can't say. I don't know. I feel like you find a different way.
Yeah, but this whole unanswered question thing, we've beaten that to death.
Yeah. Let's move on.
No pun intended.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
The sniffer dog reactions. That's a bullet point of this one. It's a pretty good one. We did already discuss a little bit the different ways that could be interpreted. And again, because I don't know which dog alerted to what, it's hard to tell. Yeah. The theories around the McCanns, they're mostly not nefarious.
Accidental.
They're mostly accidental.
An overdose.
In fact, Joe's, kind of hit the nail on the head, as Steve would say, that what the Portuguese police originally thought, and then they said no, that didn't happen, but I think a lot of people have held on to, and I honestly, my heart goes out to this theory a little bit because I can see where they were coming from maybe, is that, sometimes you've got a kid who's a little overactive and you're tired and you just want to enjoy your holiday, and
so you give the kid some heroin.
No, you give the kid some, Benadryl.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of Benadryl to try and calm them down, or a little bit of whatever sedative. They were both physicians, so they definitely had access to a lot of different kinds of sedatives or otherwise sleep aids of some kind that might have helped her relax or sleep. And we don't know if she was one of those kids who was super hyperactive. She was excited to be going home. Who knows? But the theory goes that she was given a sedative and it was an accidental overdose, though again, they were physicians, so they probably shouldn't have accidentally overdosed her, but fine, whatever. She died. They freaked out and tried to cover it up.
Mm-hmm. I have no sympathy for this theory whatsoever, because when your kid has had an accident and is bleeding and unconscious. You think the kid is dead, but you don't know for sure.
You alert somebody and try and
call
save
the
them.
ambulance. Same thing with an overdose. You call an ambulance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I actually
exactly.
I was talking to somebody about this because that's what I do. I think you guys do this too. At least I know Steve does. I don't know if Joe does or not.
Yeah.
But when I'm working on a story, I'll talk to, my significant other or friends about the story. And you were talking over dinner last night, and I said, but what you do, like, if an accident happened, you, like, find somebody. You don't look at this, like, poor child of yours who's suffering on the ground and think, crap, better cover that up.
Oh, damn, I got another body to hide.
You go, no, oh my gosh, what happened? What have I done? I gotta, and I guess it's possible that, right, she, like, died in her sleep, maybe. Maybe what happened was they gave her too much sedative and they didn't realize, and when Jerry went to go check on them, he checked on them.
Or they
realized,
both gave her the dose, not realizing that the other had already done it.
Right, but that they realized after the fact that she wasn't breathing anymore, after they came back and he had to devise something. It's possible.
It's still...
But you
still got to call an ambulance. And the thing about it is...
You revive that kid. You try and revive that kid, and it's understandable, I think, for you to kind of make the argument. It's, it's not going to go super great for you, but your kid's not going to be dead.
Exactly. Besides which, you don't have to make any arguments at all. How often, when I was a kid, my parents told me, all that stuff in the medicine cabinet, you don't go eating that stuff like candy because it'll kill you. Mm-hmm. And of course, after that, they came up with childproof caps and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but the idea of a kid getting into some drugs and swallowing a bunch of pills, not realizing what he's doing,
or
and dying,
like liquid,
is not exactly outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
So you just say, the kid.
There's a reason they came up with Mr. Yuck to put on everything.
Oh yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you just say to the kid, you just say to the police, the kid got into these drugs, unfortunately, and OD'd. So please save my kid's life. We're sorry as hell.
right?
Well,
There was no crime.
Actually,
Yeah.
you don't even have to go that far. You can say, I don't know what's going on. I'm a physician. She's unconscious, and it appears to be some kind of drug reaction, and I don't know what it is. And then they rush you to the hospital, and then one of you, quote unquote, figures out that one of the pill bottles has been opened.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Exactly.
fleshing out a bunch, and we're really going down the rabbit hole here. But there's a million ways that could happen.
But yeah, the point is that the McCanns as suspects makes no sense to me, because if the kid had an accident, they would have called an ambulance. If the kid had OD'd, they would have called an ambulance. I just can't believe that they would have murdered their own kid.
And I guess that, for me, I totally agree, but for the red flag, it's kind of that thing where had they not left their kid alone, had they seemed as they were more attentive, had all of these tiny little red flags led up to this thing, I would be way more willing to say, there's no way they would try and cover this accident up. Of course not. Any compassionate, caring parent wouldn't try and cover that up. But honestly, the story of the McCanns doesn't exactly paint a compassionate, caring parent picture. And again, I don't say that to disparage them, because I
still
feel
have
for their
they
loss.
still have their twins.
Yeah,
I mean, they're still raising those children. Those children are alive.
Yeah, they haven't murdered him yet.
I mean, they probably won't, but because it just doesn't. So much of me wants to be able to say, yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense, because it doesn't make sense. But a lot of the stuff they did doesn't make sense to me, and I don't have a good theory on this one. But I do think that of the likely suspects, they are the most likely. There are two little follow-up things here. One is that in 2008, in May of 2008, about almost, a year, a little more than a year after Maddie went missing, there was a note left on the doorway of the apartment that the McCanns had been staying in that said that Maddie's body had been dumped in a reservoir. And
Did it say which reservoir?
Yeah, it said the specific reservoir, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
No worries.
It's in a language you don't know.
It's a language I don't know. But there's some research done in it, but it's basically brushed off as not valid, this claim.
They didn't drain the reservoir and look?
They did not.
Really?
There's also been a few sightings, quote-unquote sightings, of Maddie in Spain and Portugal, and they've mostly been with local families. somebody will say, oh yeah, I saw this local family, but also one of the people they were calling their daughters was this pale blonde-haired girl who looked a whole lot like she could have been Maddie, and I think it was Maddie. So that's a thing that's been happening a lot. It's been happening this entire time, honestly. So that's worth mentioning as well. So that's kind of the story.
Well, maybe Maddie will find herself.
I sure hope so.
Because if she's 11 now.
She went missing in 2007. She was
3. She was born in 2003, right?
Yeah, so she would have been 4 in 2007.
She had just turned 4.
Okay, so she would be 11.
She was born in May of 2003. So she was 3 when she disappeared.
Yeah, so
she would have. Yeah.
So she'd be 11. She'd be 11 years old.
Yeah.
So imagine that, so she's taken when she's 3, and she's too young to really have much memory of anything. And so if somebody snatched her and say adopted her because they wanted a kid, but they couldn't
she
have
was
a kid.
A cute kid too.
Oh yeah, cute little kid. And so imagine you're this person and you're being raised by these people who are your parents, and then you're reading this, and one day stumble across on the internet the story of Madeleine McCann.
Mm-hmm. And they do age progressions every couple of years, and they publicize those. They have one of her when she was 9.
Yeah, and then you see these, you see all these pictures of her eyes and that weird anomaly in her eye. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't that be really bizarre?
That'd be surreal.
Wouldn't that
Absolutely,
be?
yeah.
Hey, wait, that
looks
me.
just like
that might be me.
Yeah.
Well, and I doubt that what you're suggesting is remotely a possibility.
Well, that's just me being wishfully thinking.
Oh, no.
I would prefer her to meet that fate.
Right on the outset, I'm going to say, this is going to sound terrible. I don't want it to be her parents.
Uh-huh.
I want it to be somebody else. But to be somebody else means very bad things.
Mm-hmm.
They all mean very bad.
Do this is that I read some of the article, and then I couldn't stomach the article anymore. So what I did is I took it in the way that I could, which is I started going into research specifically just on abductions. And the stats are staggering as to likely what has happened, because there's two kinds of situations. There is a known person abduction, so that's an acquaintance or a family member.
Yeah.
Except none of those people are around. So then this becomes what's called a stereotypical kidnapping, which is by somebody that a child doesn't know. There's some very set things that happen at that point that didn't. A ransom wasn't put out.
Okay, well,
that we know of.
Well, we skipped over this part, but there were some people that were arrested for trying to exploit the McCanns to say that they had information about where Maddie was.
But that's exploitation. That's not specifically ransom.
That's fair.
That seems to happen a lot in cases like this. The last one we talked about, there was a situation like that too.
But the things that normally happen is, if it's a stereotypical kidnapping, is the child is transported up to 50 or more miles away, which we talked about. Roadblocks. Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And then the child is either A, put into some kind of slavery scenario, and I'm not going to explain that, or is kept to be raised on their own. Okay, well, I'm hoping that is the one.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And all of these things, they tell me, I mean, I can go through this laundry list of stats, things like, 1% of kidnapped kids.
No, I don't want to hear those
They never
stats.
come back.
I don't want to hear those stats.
Within 3 hours, most of them are dead.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I mean, there's all this stuff. And all these numbers that I'm pulling, by the way, they're U.S. It's all from the FBI.
Yeah.
Because go figure. Because if a child is listed as abducted, it doesn't matter for what reason, the FBI will step in, and that's the Lindbergh law.
Is a federal crime.
It's a federal offense.
So you got this stuff out of the Uniform Crime Report?
Well, I got it from the from the FBI's website, and they have a bunch of PDFs that you can pour through, which are not nice things to pour through, but I did anyway.
No, I go out to the Uniform Crime Reports all the time. Actually, they're quite useful.
Well, they're disturbing though.
Well, yeah,
but here's my thing is that if I want Madeleine to have been abducted by somebody, to have been kept as that person's child, it means a woman would have been the one who did the abduction.
Well, unless somebody kidnapped for a woman.
Okay.
As a gift.
Primarily.
Oh God, that's a weird thing.
Primarily,
to say.
when women do the abduction, it's because they want to have a child of their own for whatever reason. Lost a child, can't have a child, doesn't matter. That's their primary motive. It's a very extremely low percentage of men
Very rare.
do it for that reason. So yes, a woman could have talked a man into doing it, but that is a very low probability.
No, a woman could have had a husband who and they wanted to have kids.
Yes.
And she especially wanted to have it, and she was getting all Kathy Bates on him, and he's like, okay, I'll find you a kid.
But the point is, I hate this story because I feel so terrible for the parents, because I am so absolutely positive that Patty's not alive anymore. And that's the reason that I hate these cases, is that more often than not, the numbers don't support the probability of survival.
Yeah, no, it is most likely that she's not alive.
Yeah, I mean that.
I mean, I hope she
it
is.
Sucks.
But,
this is one of those one that sucks. You guys stop suggesting these stories, please, because you suggest them and we have to do them.
We only want happy stories. Okay.
Can you just no more weird missing kids, please?
This is why I don't like these stories.
I know, but we have to do them.
I know we do, but I'm just going to take this stance right now, is that the stats support what I unfortunately don't like.
No, you're right.
Is the writing on the wall.
And as an aside, not that they needed the money, but the McCanns have won a lot of libel lawsuits.
Serious bank.
They've won way more than Robert ever won.
But
they also have written books.
Just making stuff up.
Oh yeah, and we're sitting here on a podcast talking about all the red flags and how they could have totally accidentally killed their daughter. I think it sucks to be them, absolutely, because not only are they going through the pain of losing a child, they're also being accused of being horrible human beings.
It's kind of like Maura Murray's dad, I felt the same way about him. It's like the poor guy. He loses his daughter, and everybody on the internet's accusing him of being a murderer.
Yeah.
Christ.
But maybe just don't do suspicious stuff, you guys.
Yeah, because it's so easy to know. Okay, if my kid disappears today, what do I not do?
Do you not make lists like that? Because I absolutely do.
Oh yeah,
you
exactly.
are such a weirdo.
Well, I do unsolved mysteries. That's my thing. So I know what not to do.
See, no. Instead, I follow a very specific pattern every day, so it's very obvious what I do every day.
Also, I think maybe you just don't plan to have kids.
Well, that and I don't plan to do anything bad
to them,
or anybody.
Anybody ever.
Yeah. Well, this is why we keep our identities a secret, though. If you haven't figured this out.
That's true. Yeah.
Exactly, because pretty soon the internet's going to be alive with rumors that we committed all these murders that we talk about on our show.
And
so that's why we stay hidden.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be at your kid's bar mitzvah.
So that's the end of this episode. I'm sorry it was long. I know you guys really hate it when we do long episodes. If you want to see some of the research that I did for this episode, we'll put some links up. You can also comment on this story. You can listen and download as well, all on our website. That website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. I think that there's a link to merch and to donate and to do a survey there as well.
All in the right-hand
sidebar. You probably are actually listening to us on iTunes. If you are and you haven't already, leave us a comment and a rating. That's how people find us. You may be streaming us. I know a lot of you are also doing that on just a bunch of different sites. I don't know streaming stuff. I'm an Apple kid. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a gazillion of them.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Find us on Facebook. Find us, friend us, like us.
Actually, speaking of streaming, there's been a bunch of talk of which app to use streaming
I think
on the
true.
Facebook group. So,
so
join the group and then you can find out which ones are better than others.
Because some of them do actually cut us off.
Yeah, like Stitcher, for example.
Yeah,
that's annoying.
We're on Twitter, Thinkin' Sideways. Some cool activity there, I guess, a little bit. Some of it. Email thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Email us story ideas, thoughts about this episode, thoughts about other episodes, creative criticism, just fangirl, fanboying.
Those are the best.
Anything, literally anything you want to say to us, you can email us, and if we don't like it, we'll just ignore it.
Pretty much.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's it. So as Steve would say, that having been said, I think we're going to get out of here.
Can we please?
Yes.
Yeah, it's time.
All right,
Okay.
bye, everybody.
Bye,
Ta-ta.
guys.
Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by A Severed Head. Or maybe it is. I'm sure you've heard of this cool new subscription service called Hunt a Killer, the interactive investigation delivered to your doorstep each month. You should check it out, huntakiller.com. Their form of storytelling puts you into the serial killer's mind. It's like you're living in your favorite true crime series. They've created a fictional world for true crime fans. You actually live inside of the story. And if investigating isn't your thing, you probably know someone who would love this as a gift. As a special offer to our listeners, they provided us with a 10% off code. That offer code is Sideways. So go to huntakiller.com and enter the code Sideways.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
Uproot the aliens.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
I don't know.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined most weeks by
Joe.
and
Steve.
we're going to talk about a mystery tonight.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, I know, it's surprising. And I'm pretty sure actually this was a listener suggestion at one point, but I can't find it on the list. So if it was, I'm really sorry, mysterious listener, for not being able to find you. But if it wasn't, yeah, take it.
Yeah.
If this is on the list, you probably can't find it because it's misspelled.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about because I went looking for it too, and I tried some different spellings. Couldn't. Yeah. Oh well.
Oh,
so
well.
sorry, whoever you were.
Yeah.
We probably would have misspelled your name anyway.
Yeah, or mispronounced it.
That too.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So this week we're going to talk about this thing called the Markovian parallax denigrate, which, you know, I think we'll probably call the MPD.
That works.
Or,
Sure.
or the Markovian
Sounds like it's something out of Tron at that point.
MPD. Realistically, I'm not going to say it too many times because it's just a mouthful.
It kind of is. Yeah, I've been pondering the meaning of it all.
Yeah. So the
Can't
quick
decipher it.
there's a quick overview here, kind of, and that is that we're going to talk about the internet or the pre-internet. We're really just like pre-internet spam. I don't know. I don't feel like there's a very
Primordial
good
spam?
Yeah, primordial spam.
It's
I don't feel
amazing
like-
how quickly somebody thought about spam, you know, before
Yeah.
the internet didn't even exist and they came up with it already.
Yeah. So I don't think there's actually a really good short, cliff notes of this. So do you guys want to just jump right in?
That's probably the best way to go
Sure.
about
Okay,
this.
cool. I will say that there's somebody in the middle of it, but we'll talk about that later. And this is often called one of the very first internet mysteries, which means that I've finally done it.
You found the very first mystery?
Found the first internet mystery.
Yeah, it's so early. The internet didn't really quite exist
It
yet.
wasn't really the internet,
Yeah.
Actually, so we are going to talk about this thing that's pre-internet. It's called Usenet, right? That's how you say it, right?
Is it Usenet or Usenet?
That is a good question.
I've wondered about this for years. It was because use, as in if it started with an H, almost use, or is it Usenet?
Yeah, I think it's Usenet just because that's easier to pronounce.
Usenet.
Yeah, so was Usenet, was USC, was that an acronym for university something or another, or was it just use as in use? We're going to use this net.
Or did it have a use?
Yeah.
Another mystery.
I know.
So
that Devin is looking at
Usenet.
us
What
like
about
with
use?
daggers for.
There's also useless net. And,
Yeah.
That's when your Wi-Fi goes down.
I think maybe it was the user network, Usenet would be my
Yeah.
guess, but please don't quote me on that. And if somebody knows, please don't make fun of me for not knowing because I'm sorry.
I never saw it called out really, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah, this Usenet or Usenet was created in 1979, though it didn't really. It was like conceptualized in 1979 and then became publicly, quote unquote, publicly available in 1980. As with the real internet, Usenet was made for universities. The University of North